we got to talk about the transfer portal because it is popping. Popping. We've talked about Colorado quite a bit during this spring transfer portal window because they had players going in. They've had players that they are pulling out to come onto their team for the fall. Until Tuesday, it seemed like most of the players that were leaving Colorado were players that they did not expect to have a big role on the team. Savion Washington, who was starting left tackle, that's probably the one who played the biggest role last year, who was leaving. He committed to Syracuse on Tuesday. But remember, they did sign Jordan Seaton, the number one offensive tackle prospect in the country, and they had a couple offensive line transfers come in. So they were feeling pretty good about where they were on the offensive line. Tuesday's where it got a little bit different. Dylan Edwards, their leading rusher from 2023, entered the transfer portal. Now, remember, Dylan Edwards was a freshman last year. Coach Prime gets the job. He flips Dylan Edwards from Notre Dame. Now, this is a guy he knew from when he was a kid. Dylan Edwards grew up mostly in Kansas, though, and that becomes part of the story a little bit later. But Dylan Edwards decides, I'm out, and we'll see where he winds up. Maybe K-State, maybe Nebraska. But he's headed to the portal, according to our Pete Nakos. And this is one that's interesting because this is not one that I think Colorado was expecting or Dion was expecting if you asked him a couple weeks ago. This is a guy that he's been praising in the spring. This is a guy that they wanted to have a role in this offense. Now, they did get a commitment from Dallin Hayden, the Ohio State transfer. So that could be the reason. Because remember, I said Dylan Edwards is the leading rusher last year. That was with 321 yards on 76 carries. Anthony Hankerson was second with 319 yards on 78 carries. So it was a very much a running back by committee situation. I got to tell you about Roback. That's right. Roback is back. I'm wearing my Navy performance hoodie right now. The best, most comfortable hoodies in the world. When you buy your first Roback performance hoodie, you at least need to buy two. I'm telling you this right now because someone in your house is going to steal one of them. Like I have to be careful. I have a bunch of Roback hoodies, but I also have a daughter who's decided she loves oversized sweatshirts. And so I'm much larger than she is. Therefore, my shirts are oversized on her. I've got to figure out how to put an alarm on my Roback hoodies because she's going to take them all. But these things are amazing. They're not super hot winter weight hoodies. These are perfect for spring and summer. I wear mine fishing. They're great for those cool mornings, but also you roll up the sleeves. They're good for you all day. And don't forget, Roback also has performance polos and shorts. It is the brand as the weather warms up. So look for that beautiful Rhodesian Ridgeback right there. Got one on my left shoulder here. Go to roback.com, RHOBACK.com. Use the code Andy for 20% off your first purchase. That's roback.com, RHOBACK.com. The code is Andy. Load up on those performance hoodies. I'm telling you, you got to order at least two because somebody's stealing one. Dylan Edwards, you remember, it's interesting because the way he came on the scene, you probably thought he had a bigger season than he did. So I mentioned 321 yards, led the Buffaloes by 2 yards. He also had 36 catches for 299 yards and 4 TDs, but 5 of those catches went for 135 yards and 3 touchdowns in the season opener against TCU. That was the one where we were saying, oh my God, this offense is unbelievable. They got Dylan Edwards and Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn, so many weapons. And of course, Shedeur Sanders throwing everybody the ball. Well, they still have Shedeur Sanders, and they still have Travis Hunter, and they still have Jimmy Horn Jr. They have LaJohntay Wester from Florida Atlantic, who came in, that they feel like is going to do some pretty big things. But this one is interesting because, again, it was one, and I feel like it's the first one we've seen where this was somebody they expected to contribute. And look, Colorado's not alone in that. There have been plenty of teams that have lost players that they thought would contribute to the portal. And it might be a role situation, or it might be that Dylan Edwards just thinks he can do better somewhere else or have a better role somewhere else. Christopher Neely, the basically Deion's proxy, he's the guy behind the camera on a lot of Deion's videos. He put out a video on Tuesday basically saying that Dylan Edwards didn't want to compete. I'll be curious to see how Dylan Edwards responds to that. And I think maybe his choice of next school will probably give us a clue or a hint of how he responds to that. As far as where that next school will be, we know somebody who wants Dylan Edwards real bad, and that is Kansas State quarterback Avery Johnson, because when our Hayes Fawcett tweeted out that Dylan Edwards was expected to enter the portal, Avery Johnson retweeted that and then put the little house emoji, basically come home to Kansas. Not University of Kansas, Kansas State. Avery Johnson then posted this picture of himself and Dylan Edwards playing Pee Wee football. And oh my God, it's adorable. Avery Johnson's hair not long yet. Rocking the short hair back then. Adorable picture. I feel like if you have the Pop Warner pic of you two playing together, it's the ultimate recruiting tool. Because that's the first thing you say when you see that is, "Aw." And then you think about Dylan Edwards in that TCU game, how explosive he looked. And you think about Dylan Edwards, not the tallest running back. You know who's been great with really short running backs? Kansas State. Then you think about Avery Johnson's really fast. And Kansas State is very committed to running the football. Can you imagine Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards in a read option mesh? What do you do if you're the defensive end getting read on that play? I think that's what got probably some Kansas State fans excited on Tuesday. Although I do think there'll be competition for Dylan Edwards because we did see flashes his freshman year of what he could be, and it was pretty interesting. As far as Colorado goes, am I going to predict doom and despair? No, I'm going to continue to predict the same thing I've been predicting all along. Colorado will be basically the same as they were last year. That's the prediction. Basically the same. Because they didn't really try to commit to building anything. They did essentially the same thing they did last year. I think it will net them the same results they got last year. Now, if more people who we thought would contribute to them start to leave, remember, they're not done with spring practice yet. So there's going to be more. I'm assuming the more is going to be people who aren't going to have roles. Because Deion Sanders' roster building philosophy is flush the people we don't think can play, bring in new people. Can those people play any better than the ones we just flushed? We don't know. And the problem with doing this in such high volume in the spring portal is there isn't that level of quality. There probably is in the winter portal. There probably is that level of quality if you can get them to come to you, but the problem is everybody else is shopping like that too. So it's not an utter disaster because Dylan Edwards left Colorado, but it is a warning sign. If nobody else who they expect to contribute takes off between now and the closing of the spring portal window, then don't worry about it. If a few more do, yeah, that's cause for concern. But we shall see. We'll see where Dylan Edwards winds up. Again, that's an adorable photo from Avery Johnson. You see that photo and you're like, yeah, okay, you gotta go to Kansas State because you got to recreate that photo. Like the first thing they do if he goes to Kansas State is they go out to the field and recreate that photo. Got to. Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.